The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Sakach here again with my co-host Tullio, Siragusa, and our special guest today, who we'll introduce in a moment. So in a world filled with digital tools and rapid communication, something very human continues to stand out as a competitive advantage, and that's connection. LinkedIn has reported that roughly 8 out of 10 professionals say networking is important to career success, yet many admit they rarely build relationships in a consistent or meaningful way. And the difference usually comes down to intentionality and service. And today we are talking about how leaders can build connection and community in a way that creates value for everyone involved. Tullio, introduce our guest today.
My pleasure. Our guest today is Steve Ramona. He's a next level super connector and a partnership specialist who has helped generate more than $1 billion in project impact and over $100 million in partner deals through the power of intentional introductions. He is the host of the Top 20 Doing Business with a Servant Heart podcast. Now more than 800 episodes strong. I think it's 900 episodes since we wrote this. And leads Together We Serve on an E360 TV, reaching millions of viewers each month through stories of purpose-driven leadership and collaboration. So excited to have you on the show today, Steve. Good to have you.
Thanks for having both of you. Thanks for having me. It's a great topic, and we need to talk more about this.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this one, Steve, since I was on your podcast a while back. You got to come on. We got to talk to people about kind of the way you operate. Because, this is kind of your superpower is connecting. And you're one of those super connectors. I remember reading a book, I think it was The Tipping Point, I want to say, where they talked about there's a certain person who's just got that down, that super connecting ability. And I think you're definitely a super connector. But let's dive into it. Steve, people talk about networking all the time. How do you define true connection versus just exchanging contact information?
You're invisible. When I go meet somebody, it's all about that person I'm meeting. I don't do as many now, but I used to do 10, 15 discovery calls, one-on-one calls, whatever, not sales calls, but trying to figure out what they do and how we can help. And that's always my first question. How can I help you today, Tullio? Steven, how can I support you today? It sends people back in their chair, which is great because they don't hear it all the time, if not at all. And I think before I jump on a call, how can I uplift and bring value to somebody? That's all I care about. People go, what about you? I said, it will come. You saw the numbers I was doing. I've done millions of dollars in partnerships. It's come back, and lately it's come back even more for other reasons. But you just got to take the focus off you. The spotlight should be on the person you're talking to or people, and then run with it from there.
I love that. So let's apply this in a business context, right? You're talking about really focusing on relationships and what happens to businesses when leaders begin to prioritize relationships first instead of processes and systems, which are important too. But what happens to those businesses when leaders prioritize relationships?
Competitors send you clients. Other people are willing to help you. You talk to somebody that's a billionaire and you're trying to be at that level, or a multimillionaire. When you treat them right and build relationships, you can go ask Ivan Meisner, who's on my podcast, who started BNI. I think he's a billionaire. I don't know the name, but he's very wealthy. We got done. I asked him a few questions. He goes, anytime you need some help, just reach out. That is the biggest tool in the toolbox for business, is that relationship with that type of person. Or if you're listening, when you're listening to this live or recording, build up your mentorship. Build up those people that are your peer, not your peers, but above your peers, and learn from them. Ask questions. Be involved. Be engaged. Because here's the power of that. One, Steve Ramona gets to be better, but here's the biggest power from the connecting standpoint. I can go to everybody else that is struggling, that needs help, and take all that information with love from that billionaire and share it with hundreds. And that's what I do when I meet people. Hey, I just learned this. You know what ego is? From Mark Hunter. He's done millions of dollars in sales. It's empowering greater outcomes. That's how he's made millions of dollars. And people look at me like, oh my God, really? I thought I had to pitch everybody. No. Build the love, build the connection. We talk about this, I call it a business marriage. When you got married, you didn't go on that first date or see your woman on Tinder or whatever you do. You find that woman or man and go, I'm going to marry that person. Now, maybe you say I'm going to marry in the future, but you're going to get to know them. You're going to build that relationship. Friends the same way. Your family members the same way. Why can't business be that way? Me and Steven talked about on my podcast that empathy and love has to be part of building that relationship.
People find people to marry on Tinder now? That's
I think so. I've been so out of the game. I shouldn't have said it, but that's why I love podcasts, because you never know what's going to happen.
That's a departure from what I remember. Okay, so I mean, this is so key what you're saying, and because actually, it reminds me of some of the work I did. I was in a men's team for decades, and we always talked about, especially men have more difficulty with connection than women. It's just a fact. And then we talked about the suck hole, like where you just stay in this little hole by yourself, right? And then how that impacts even your wealth and your well-being. And as you move up and you start having relationship with friends and family and then colleagues, and you keep moving up, the greater relationships you have, the more connections you have, the more expansive your universe becomes, the more wealth and wellness you create. There's a direct correlation with connection, relationship, and even wealth. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. It just reminded me of that. Like, yeah, it's true. Nothing happens without connection. AI is not going to make you wealthier. It might save you a lot of money on stuff, but it's not going to make you wealthier. Connections will make you wealthier. For sure.
Steve, you made a great point there. Sorry, Stephen. And I say this all the time when I mentor people, especially entrepreneurs and business owners. You're in the people asset business. What do you want to do with an asset? In financial field, if that asset goes down, you're losing money. If it goes up, you're making money. Well, people are your asset as well. The more good people or great people or incredible people around you or in your company, like your company's, I could feel it with your company. The culture, it's going to be a better company, and it's going to grow, and it's going to be successul.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
100%. I was going to ask, when did you first realize connection was a superpower in business, or even for you? Like, is this something like this came naturally to you, or is this something that you kind of worked on?
All right, Stephen, I love this question because it's what happened. You guys are great. Audience, I hope you're listening to these guys' shows because it's fantastic.
Thank you.
At 18 years old, I quit high school, graduated, thank God, barely, but graduated from high school. And I played football. I was going to go to community college to play football, and my family launched a health club. And so my cousin Jeff Ramona, shout out, him and my dad were such great mentors early at 18 years old. And so I came to work at the front desk, and people would come in and out. And one of the tips we learned was, because the staff would come to me, because my family owned it, and go, well, you're asking us to say everybody's name? Come on, we got 1,000 people coming. How are we going to remember everybody's name? And my cousin went to me and goes, just have them stare at the computer screen. The guy checks in. Hey, Tullio, welcome to Royal Courts, it was called. Hey, Tullio, have a great day. But what I started learning was these very wealthy 40, 50, 60-year-olds were going, hey, Steve, how was your vacation? Oh, it was great. Hey, how's your baby? How's your grandbaby? So the conversation changed to building relationship. And they eventually started taking me out to dinner, taking me out to lunch, bringing tips and resources, books and advice. And, 18, 19, 20 years old. Today, I would know I was blessed. I didn't think so then. But I'll tell you a quick story. And this gentleman, Tony, little Italian financial advisor, working with multiple millions of dollars. He drove this beautiful Mercedes I can remember. And he'd come and call me kid. And that's kind of how we built this relationship in a business. Mind you, hey kid, and he threw a book at me. It was The Wealthy Barber. I want you to read this by next Tuesday. I'm going to ask you what it's all about. Promise you'll read it? I said, yeah. He comes in the next Tuesday. Hey kid, did you read the book? Gave it back to him. I said, yeah. He said, what'd you get from it? I said, take 10% of my income and put it away. Don't touch it. Was a tip, a great resource. So I did at 19 years old. I kind of looked at it, but he was always sitting on my shoulder. Don't touch the money. That's what he said. 10 years later, I was 29 years old. I opened the account and looked at it for years. He had $68,000 because of compounding and all that. And this is the lesson I learned later. So I called him because I still knew him. He wasn't part of the club. And I said, Tony, I want to thank you. Here's what I did. Here's what happened. Can I pay you $1,000? That was your job? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, one, I'm retired, but still, here's what happens to the universe. When you took my advice and ran with it, I know a millionaire or very wealthy person came to my life and became my client. So doing this for you and other people, I learned this lesson of serving people for no money, giving all your IP away. And from there, Tullio and Steven, it took off. My connections and my network blew up after that.
Tony's doing work there. Like, I haven't even thought about like just dropping a book on some kid and tell him to read it and I'll come back in a week. That's pretty impressive.
In 1980 too. This is 1980, which is even weird.
It reminds me of that scene with Chaz Palminteri in the car, and he's like training the kid on how to run. Make sure she opens the door for you.
Hey, Steve, what makes someone memorable in your network? And I know you do some intentional things sometimes, like you and I, when we were talking about, what do you kind of do to make someone, stand out or to remember them?
Always edify. You can always find something good about people. Doesn't matter. It could be their background. It could be, hey, I was at church a couple of weeks ago and I said, hey, your baby's got a beautiful bow. 5-second conversation. She came back. She said, you really made my day. I was having a bad day today. It was not a good day. You made my day. So edifying things, see them and put them out there. I've never had somebody call me an a-hole because I edified them. People all accept that. We all accept that kind of gift. The other thing is bring them value, like I mentioned before. Give them an introduction. If you don't have a big network, give them a resource. Find ways that you can help people feel better about themselves. And here's the last thing that I learned from he was doing $250 million a year in his company. He said, say people's names. And here's a little tip, audience. You go to the grocery store or a restaurant. I do this all the time. Make sure you look at their name tag and go, Tony, thank you for bagging my groceries. Tony, have a great day. Say their name minimum twice.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Like if someone just tells me that, it could be like, I don't know. I feel like that's maybe a quirk with me. They told me their name, but then 30 seconds later, I go, wait a minute. What was the name? Instead of saying, oh, thanks, Steve, for blah, blah, blah. And then it sticks with me. It's definitely something that I've learned over the years is that you got to say that name
or turn people into your friends. It reminded me of this guy I used to work with. We would go to conferences and not everybody's wearing a name tag, so you don't really know their name, but he'd go to everybody's house, hello, my friend. Hello, my friend. And it was so weird to me. Like, why do you call me a friend? But they would respond so positive because he goes, what I'm trying to do is let them know that I'm friendly and we could be friends. So it's kind of like this energy of the way friends talk to each other, right? So you would break barriers down immediately by saying, hello, my friend. Hello, my friend. And it was just bizarre to me because I was like, I don't know the name. How do I introduce? But I eventually started trying that, and it worked so well. It's just, the willingness to make a friend, I think, is key. Do you agree? Like, just
it's 100%. And here's the thing: if you don't remember people's names, I used to worry about this. Oh, I met this guy a couple of months ago. I don't remember his name. I just asked now. I know we met a couple of months ago. What was your name?
Yeah.
People, because you're acknowledging them. Then you're acknowledging being humble, saying, "I forgot your name." Now, maybe. I don't know what they do when they walk away, but I've had people do it. I said, no problem, because then you keep serving them. You keep building that relationship. Like, hey, we talked about this. Let's, whatever that turns to. But remember, names are valuable. You're Tullio, you're Steven, I'm Steve. Hey, me and you, Steven, have a close name, but that's my name. That's your name, Steven. That's your name, Tullio. So why not say that and say, hey, dude, hey, girl, hey, babe, hey, honey. You do your wife and stuff, but people in business, you're showing love without being worried about being too HR problem, because that's their name. Even the bosses, if they want to be called Mr. Smith, you do that, but whatever, use their name in conversation as much as you can. And I've seen it happen so many times. The energy, like you mentioned, Tullio, it just rises. Speaking to people, what was your name? I just did a group yesterday and I kept saying people's names. Now, Shelly, if we did this and you could see the faces light up, I got so many emails that was such a great mastermind. So that's one of the keys. That name is so powerful.
So we're introducing ourselves, we're getting these names and everything and trying to build that relationship. There's an important part of this that I think a lot of people fall short on, and that's kind of the follow-up, right? I think Harvard Business Review highlighted that consistent follow-up is one of the strongest predictors of long-term professional connection and opportunity creation. So what I want to get into, Steve, is what systems or routines help you maintain or deepen relationships over time. Now, I know I used to be former reporter way back when, and they had some, the Rolodex way back then, and they had, some practices for you to do that follow up and stuff like that. But for you, what this is modern times now. So, I just threw out a Rolodex I found in the garage the other day. But so what do you do, Steve?
I'm very conscious.
I want to add quickly. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I struggle with this personally. I made a lot of connections, but for years didn't know how to nurture them. So I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this, because I'm sure a lot of other people struggle with the same thing.
Yeah, and if you're listening, this is something you may not have heard ever that I'm learning, and I've learned from somebody else. And I forget the gentleman's name, but when I serve people at the level I do, I don't get forgotten. Perfect example. I got a LinkedIn message today from a beautiful podcast guest who is a host. I was on her show, and we haven't talked in 3 months. Man, it's been way too long. Let's connect. Let's reconnect. So people are following up with me because I bring them so much value, so many gifts. I'm unforgettable. Maybe it's when I look and, that, it might be a whatever. But you, first and foremost, keep serving, keep bringing value, because you become unforgettable. And the Maya Angelou quote about, I forget the quote all the time.
Yeah, it's how you make people feel is really the important, right?
That's great. Now, from a practical standpoint, find a spreadsheet software and just put it in and just put a date. Okay, I met with Stephen and Tullio on February 19th. I'm going to follow up in 2 weeks. But I love to follow up with a video. Man, what a great show we on 2 weeks ago. Man, that Bliss Business Podcast was one of my best. How are we doing today? How can I help you? How can I support you? Follow up with serving again. And you're going to draw some great. Don't never forget.
All right.
Yes,
So your network.
I want to describe what Steve does to people, because it is very unique. It's like, we'll have talked, we'll have been on a show or something, and he gets to know you, and then he's like, hey, I really think Steve should meet this other person, and then he'll follow up with like a video, like a 30-second sort of introduction video that, and then 2 or 3 or 4 of them really, it really does stand out in your email box.
All right, so I got to ask this question. I started thinking Steve's got a bunch of videos. You just inserts a name and sends them out. No, I'm kidding, but this is genuinely a question, because as you scale connections, you got a lot more of them. Over the years, we collect a lot of connections, right? And how do you keep them genuine, so that they don't feel mechanistic or cold, like you're just nurturing them because you've got the checkbox? Why do you keep them genuine, as you scale? What's your secret for doing that?
Tullio, that's a loaded question, and I've got a loaded answer. No, and I love it. So I do videos because emails are good. Hey, Tullio meets Steven. But I think with introductions, the missing component is why. So in my video, I can go, we'll use both users there. Hey, Steven, meet Tullio. Tullio is a podcast host. Fabulous show. Make sure I'm edifying. Steven, you'd be a great guest on his show. Tullio, I just had Steven on my show. Unbelievable guest. You guys take it from here, make it a great connection. And that's it. So edification, give intention, and walk away. And I get people going, what happens if I'm wrong or it's the wrong introduction? It's just an introduction. You mindset-wise walk away. I've had people come up, why'd you do that introduction? Or that didn't work. And next, in my head, not in a bad way, but I have no control. I'm a big Stoic. Stoicism is a big part of my life. I have no control over that introduction. And I'm really good at it because I'm going to back up and tell you when I first meet somebody. I use this principle that, audience, write this down because it's making me millions of dollars. Literally. ASLA. ASLA. Funny name. One of my podcast guests, which is why I love podcasting, said, that's what this is. And here's the acronym. Ask a question. Shut the hell up. Listen intently. Ask another question. I do it all the time, and I end up learning all about that person. I end up mentoring them if they ask or want it. Hey, I want help here. But I can learn so much about them. Then I can go, because when I ask the questions, I know what Tullio and Steven are doing, and go, hey, you need to meet Peter and Tony. They do this, this, and this. Would that be a good connection? So sometimes, not all the time, I'll get the thumbs up from the person. Say, here's what I'm thinking and connecting with these people. Does that help?
I think you said something really key that resonates with me. And what I've heard is when you are making an introduction, you have to remove your expectation for validation. It's not about you. It's like, if you want to be of service, it's about the value that creates by connecting those two people and then letting it go. I think sometimes we go into this movie, what if they don't like the introduction I made? What if there's no real value? What are they going to think of me for doing that, right? So you got to remove all that personal judgment. Would you say that's fair?
Very fair, because I had that same thought. So audience, if you're thinking that and you guys are thinking that, I started with that. Oh, as I say the wrong thing, I say their name. I've said people's names wrong. Again, it's about the love. Let's jump back to empathy. I'm loving these two people to come together and get to know each other. And, I did 1,800 referrals last year with video.
That's phenomenal.
Now, it takes time, and I'm like, at times, like, why do I do this? But you know what? I got to take myself out of the equation. Again, empathy, gratitude. I'm referring to people, and it's amazing. I had two ladies I referred, and they get back to me five months later, and they launched a Hawaii retreat, and they made $10,000. They've never done a retreat before because I put them together. They met. They were so connected. I mean, those stories, as we talked about, Steven, light you up. That's what business is about. Now, the other flip side of this is people like, well, yeah, I serve, but I got bills to pay. Well, so does Tullio. So does Steven. We all have bills to pay. This should be your DNA in business. The marketing, the HR, and all that, that's the component that builds your business. Or culture, let's use that. That should be your culture as an entrepreneur, or if you have a team. How are you going to serve? Because the how, when, or where, the universe, or in my case, I'm a big faith guy, God is going to reward me. It happens. And quick story, chiropractor's office, and the chiropractor's talking to this gentleman, Russian gentleman, and talking about entrepreneurship. And he goes, oh, why don't you have your son talk to Steve? Because his son just lost his job. He says, hey, would you like to talk to him? Sure, here's my number. Have him give me a call. So he called me a couple weeks later, and he was like, after 40 minutes, like, oh my gosh, thank you for all the help. I've got hope now, which right there I could have been done. But I said, here's some couple steps to take, and we walked away. The next morning, I had $500 in my PayPal account. Wasn't from him. Wasn't from the dad. It was a coaching program I referred to somebody 3 months ago, and it was an affiliate. I got paid. Universe said, and now people are like, can you really correlate? I think you can. If you can't, I understand. But me serving him from my heart, helping him, giving him all my IP for free, it comes back. And it's come back many times.
It's not imagining. It's kismet. Kismet. That's the real thing.
Kismet.
Stephen,
It
Tullio,
is.
you guys both hit on something that I just want to talk about for a second, was this need for kind of validation sometimes. And Steve, you also mentioned kind of take yourself out of the equation. And it took me a long time to kind of learn that, but at some point it was like, you really need to just take nothing really from this. Like if you're going to go and give a big public speech and you're so nervous, what you're nervous about is the validation or the judgment or that kind of stuff. But if you're just like, I'm not here to take anything, I'm just here in service, and take it or leave it, and I'm just going to do my best. But all that emotional energy we put into that, it really comes down to almost this validation thing, or putting yourself into the equation in some way and hoping for some kind of outcome out of it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to reiterate that point, because it is a really big.
And P.S., that will serve you well, not just in networking, but in life, even as a parent and as a friend, because the minute you have expectations, no one can fulfill your expectations.
Yeah.
When you remove your expectation and just give lovingly and with willingness and curiosity, then and know that eventually it's all going to come back to you. That's the real gift. But the minute you're looking for that validation, you already failed. So we have an audience question, but before we do, I want to ask one more question, because I think this is key as well. Okay, so we're learning how to connect, how to do the follow-up, but how do you avoid those connections turning cold over the years? Because it can happen. Give us a little more. How do you help those connections from turning cold?
Next. The next person.
Still working on that one. Huh?
Yeah, because here's the thing, right? The audience and you guys, I've learned all this as I did all the mistakes. I'm 64, but I've had to, a servant's heart, somebody with empathy. You've got to say no to people sometimes. They're not a fit for your company. You're not fit as a client. I think, Stephen, we talked about that. You've had times where you just had to tell a client, it's not working. There's not a fit here. You got to move on. But here's how I'm always thinking. This is why I'm so successful, is I tell owners all the time, when you let somebody go talk to another company and tell Steve Ramona, hey, Steve, it's just not a fit here, but I've talked to Joe Smith and I'm going to set you up an appointment. And I'm going to see if you can get a job there. I think that'd be a greater fit for you. And another quick thing is, when we're all doing sales, you guys, marketing company, you're going to pitch, somebody like, I want to use your company. How much is it? And you go, it's $10,000. And they go, well, we've all done this on both sides. I'm not ready for that. It's a little expensive. Maybe talk to them, whatever they say. They're just not ready. Well, both sides of that fence, it's very uncomfortable for the person asking for the 10 and the person that's got to pay the 10,000. It's uncomfortable. I don't care how good of a sales guy you are. We're human. When we get a no and somebody has to say no, it's hard. So the person that gets the no, and I've done this for myself and have many entrepreneurs do this, I'll go, hey, Joe Smith, I understand it's just not a fit right now. But during our conversation, you mentioned these two things. I'm going to introduce you to Tullio and Stephen. I think they can help you with some of the things that you're struggling with. So now you take a no and you just dissolve it. And you're building a relationship. Instead of going, Joe, you need this. You have no people in your business. You need to grow. Why are you not buying my program? Never works.
Yeah, well, that's
rarely.
Stephen often says, where that's an opportunity where you can bliss that, right? It's like, where can I show love in this moment? And if we all came out of it from that perspective, then you immediately acknowledge that, yeah, it might be difficult for the other person, but what's the loving thing to do? Understand from their point of view. How do we come to a place where we're understanding each other and creating value for each other? And that really requires to be loving and caring. We got an audience question before we go into the next segment. For someone this is very timely, for someone who feels naturally shy, what's the first mindset shift they need to make about networking? Give it to us straight and dirty.
I love introverts because you have an advantage. And they look at me like, what the heck are you talking about? Introvert. I teach, ask, shut up, listen, and ask. Well, you're an introvert, have 3 questions on your computer screen or your wherever. Go, what's your challenges in your business? And let that person go off, add this and this and this and this. And then ask, well, I heard you say this. How about, and ask another question. You should not be talking all the time. You should be 20%, 80% when you're getting to know somebody and want to serve them or even transact with them when it gets to that point. Introverts, you have a huge advantage. I'm an extrovert, you can tell. I would never shut up. And I literally pitched a gentleman, I'll mention his name, he's Donnie in my podcast, and I had this digital business card and I was pitching him because he had this big network. I'm thinking way beyond. Never do that. I'm like, he's got 10,000 people he knows. Well, he stopped me and goes, Steve, you don't know who I am. Why are you even trying to pitch me? I don't even know your product, if it would even help me. And they stopped, and that's why I always will remember him. He mentored me and coached me how to do it. From that day on, I shut myself up and started doing the ASLA principle. Didn't figure that out till later. So you introverts, embrace it. You are great salespeople. You're great business owners. You should do it different than I do.
You know,
I like that.
It's our second guest, Tullio, this week, who said, shut up. You need to shut up sometimes.
Listen.
Right?
No, but that's a good point. If you're shy, it's actually an advantage. It's not a handicap because you're going to do better at listening.
I love it.
You just need to have a few questions in your back pocket that you can spark up conversation with.
Yes.
Great tip. Okay, let's go on to one of the questions we ask all of our guests around the role of purpose and all that we do. You know, Deloitte actually did some research that they show that purpose-driven organizations tend to experience stronger loyalty from employees, customers, and partners, and that often translates into better retention and long-term growth, i.e., profitability. What purpose drives you to be the super connector, to build these communities? Like, how does that influence the relationships you pursue?
I want to be a servant's heart. That's my mission, my legacy. My purpose is to serve everybody I can. This show, I want to be the best guest possible with the best energy, authentic and genuine, and tell stories and all that. And that's everything I do. My purpose for the next 10 years is people doing business and / life with a servant's heart, that 1 million people see that message and grasp it and run with it. I heard purpose was 80% of entrepreneurs do not know their purpose. And I've talked to many of them. And that's okay, but find that purpose, because that's what's going to carry you through the hard times during COVID, during 2008, the stock market, when we got these crazy times, it's going to carry you through. And you know what? It's a great way to run a business.
And speaking of that servant's heart, you know, and purpose, I often think if you don't know your purpose, you really should start with the idea of how do you serve other people ultimately. Let's just start there. How are you in service to others? And what have you seen as far as changes in people around when they adopt that kind of mindset?
Got a great story. Rick, a podcast host. I've mentored a lot of podcast hosts. I love doing it, again, giving back what I've learned through these crazy 900 shows. And we jumped on I think I did his podcast and we were talking after, and he gave, hey, can you give me some tips? I said, when you're done with your guest, ask them if they have any referrals. Tell them what you do real quick. He said, oh my God, Steve, got an email very next morning. He did 2 guests. I did what you said. I got 4 new guests for my podcast, and 2 of them are rock stars. Exactly people I was looking for. It just works. And I'm going back to the empathy and fun. It is so fun to get those emails, to get that message, to see people when they're on a podcast. And I know it's a mind shift change, but I didn't have that mindset. I knew about it. I had a large network because of working in a health club, and I ran a restaurant. I naturally had a network, but I didn't know how to use it. And I mean, use that with all my heart, with all my love. And now I just putting people together and connecting and just changing people's lives. Let's impact people more, whether it's with your product, service, or with your service.
I love it. Steve, so one of the questions, as you know, on this show that we like to ask in some form or another, and we ask this to all the people who come on here, is what role does love play in business?
It is the game changer, because love teaches you. Love opens up things that you see that you didn't. You know, if I loved a bad employee, it's much easier to handle that and find a better place. Maybe they're in sales and they should be an admin. If I hated that employee and I didn't love that employee, I wouldn't know what to do with them because I have so much hatred. Love runs a business. And we talked about before the show, Tullio, you said, well, this is not talking about your love with your wife. I think there's agape, and I forget the two Greek ones.
Sturgis and agape.
Thank you. See, I always need help. See, my mentor just taught me some, Tullio. Thank you. But it should run your business because you can have negativity and be able to handle with love because you will. And when you're up here and then down here and up here and down here, love is the guiding light that takes you through the ups and the downs. Because even at the up and you're just doing so well like I am right now, love keeps me grounded. How many more people can I love in my business? Have empathy for. But also love is my great governor because it tells me when I'm giving love and the people are treating me like crap. And you'll get that if you're in business, that you just got to remove yourself from that. I used to enable people all the time. I'd meet with them and they would do nothing. And they come to me, hey, my business is not growing. Well, did you do what I told you last month? No. And I would keep doing it because I'm like, I'm forcing serving on them. And I realized my servant heart needed to say no because I was not the answer for them. They needed to find somebody else. That's a hard concept for the people to understand. Really hard for me, but it absolutely works and gives you peace of mind.
Yeah, those sometimes you give people the right plan, but they don't execute because their belief doesn't allow them to. That's the beauty of neuroscience. You have to rewire. But that's another topic for another conversation. For now, let's see if we can give the listeners something concrete they can anchor themselves on that they can do like this month, right? So what would be those listening like a good way for them to build better connections, real connections?
One
like
what?
thing.
Yeah.
Give us the down and dirty. Here's what you need to do right now. Practice this month, and you're going to improve creating real connections in your life. What is that?
Get better 1% every day, but that's not answering your question. I always like to add that. Whatever that looks like, get better 1%. Maybe today's Thursday, maybe Saturday, you get better 5%. And this is business and life. So get better every day. Whatever that reading, listen to a podcast, doing your to-do list. You all have different get betters. Just get better. But here's the thing to do. Practice service. So here's a tip for all of you. You got to write this down. I've got a journal, and if you go on Amazon, you'll find I think it's 99 cents. But just take a pad of paper and go, how many people did I serve this week? And what was their reaction? Because I get so many great positive reaction, it wants me to do more service. So you audience out there listening, if you keep track of, okay, I just met Tullio, I got on a call with him and I gave him a tip on AI. I met Steven, I saw him at the grocery store and I gave him I invited him into my birthday party or whatever that looks like. And it doesn't have to be perfect. But write down after you do those two services how that person felt. Real quick story, and I tell people when you're having a bad day, you're having that dip, we all have them again. 2:00, I don't leave my office ever. Contract didn't get signed, 3 no shows. It was like, I'm not feeling good in my mind. So I left the office. 2:00 and went grocery shopping. Standing in lines, it was slow, and there was a lady in front of me with a baby, and I tell the clerk, I'm in California, so kids here with, they have the long hair like surfers, and they go, hey, can you give me a credit card? I want to pay for the groceries. Dude, what are you doing? Dude, you don't buy what? I had to talk him into it. She's like, no. And I did it. I was just thinking, it was just something that came to me. It's like, I want to do something good for somebody. Here's the power of this, why you need to be serving and have empathy. I'm walking out. Her name's Debbie, and she had the beautiful baby, and we were talking a little bit, and she starts tearing up. Now, I'm worried. Did I upset her? I didn't want to do, and I told her, I didn't want to upset you. I had a good day. Just want to help somebody today. She goes, no, Steve. These are tears of joy. My husband lost his job last week. We have no money. And we need diapers and food for our baby, and I think they bought a couple other things. How did you know? I said, I didn't. No, that's the universe. That's what happens when you serve. You're not going to hear it all the time. But here's the other power of serving. What do you think Debbie did when she got home and saw her husband? Jim, I don't know his name. Oh my God, I was at the grocery store and this guy, Steve, bought our groceries. Why did he do that? He just said he had a bad day and wanted to help somebody. What's their mindset? I shifted their mind, and I didn't think about this.
Gratitude.
I shifted their mindset.
You open up everything in your life. So it's the gift. It's not just the giving. It's the gift that it creates in the shift in mindset. Because once you shift to gratitude, everything opens up. That is so powerful and so beautiful, Steve.
Thank you.
Wow. You know, it's funny. This past Tuesday, we were talking about this practice I do where at the end of the day, I look where I missed an opportunity to be empathetic and I go back and review what I could have done differently. But I love this practice, which is not always where you did something wrong. Like, who did I serve this week? Because that then builds on this momentum and creates your identity of looking for opportunities to serve. So I took note of that. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to include that into my repertoire. Thank you for that.
And real quick, the other thing is say, and sorry to interrupt because I want people to miss this. Say people's names for a week or a month. When you're going to grocery stores, waitress, just say their names twice. Write that down after. Get your notepad on your phone, your whatever, or a piece of paper. Just write, hey, I just did Debbie, the waitress. I said her name twice, and our water was quicker. She was showing up more. I mean, notice all that because it's going to educate you.
Nice. So we're at the end of the show. We could keep going. We have to have you back. So people want to learn about you, about your work. Where should they go? How do they get in touch with you?
Serving and business podcast.com, or just search Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I bring in leaders like you guys are doing so incredibly well that talk about service, talk about stories of. I had Robin on, who was was married to somebody at 16 who was in a cult. In a cartel, and wasn't killed because she found out about it. And then she married another guy, and that was terrible. And now she's flourishing. That's what I want people to see. Even when you're down and out, you can still be a servant's heart. Or you can email me at stevr1961@gmail.com. And I also have a community of people that can network, can connect, and I teach them all these things I've taught you guys.
Thank you.
Steve, thanks for joining us today. Hey, and if you want to, improve yourself 1% every day, go listen to Steve's podcast. Of course, listen to ours. You're going to get that 1% every day. I'm sure today will give you 5-10%, I think. So thanks again, Steve. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in again and for your questions. And, connection, it's not accidental. Sometimes it's built with intention and generosity.
Can I do one more thing before we close? Sorry, I know you guys. I'm going to send a book. First 5 people that reach out to you guys and mention our podcast, I will send them a book that's changed my life for free.
All right, people. You hear that? All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for joining us, everyone, on the Bliss Business Podcast. We will see you next time.